The third season of Athletes Unlimited kicked off last night, and I have with me one of the voices who was live and on the scene. Brendan Glasheen, play-by-play extraordinaire, is here to take us through what he saw last night and what to expect throughout the AU season. The Locked On Women's Basketball Podcast, it starts right now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Hello, and thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember that Locked On Women's Basketball is brought to you by everyone at The Next, a place where we cover women's basketball all the time, and we tell the stories that need to be told every day. Subscribe now to support the staff at The Next that works oh so hard to bring you this coverage that matters oh so much. That's $9 a month, $72 per year. Find us at thenexthoops.com and subscribe. But also, my name is Jackie Powell, and welcome. I'm one of your hosts on this program, usually on Fridays. I cover the New York Liberty at The Next, and I've covered women's basketball nationally at many other places. Also, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and many more. Today's episode is brought to you all by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit fanduel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, dear listeners, the last time I was with you all, I had Sam Gordon on to help me preview the Stephen versus Sabrina shootout that happened at NBA All-Star. But let's be real, NBA All-Star felt like an extension of WNBA All-Star. And that's really how it should be. But anyway, today I have Brendan Glasheen here, and we will be talking all things Athletes Unlimited, as the season tipped off last night, and he was live on the ground in Dallas giving the play-by-play action. So in segment one, we're going to get into why Brendan decided to hop on the mic in Texas for AU. In the second segment, we're going to talk reactions, what we saw from night one. And in segment three, we're going to discuss what Athletes Unlimited continues to become in its third season and how it continues to help pro women's basketball players and WNBA players as well. So Brendan, thank you so much for joining us. First, take the listeners through how this opportunity came to you and why you wanted to do this.
Thanks for having me, Jackie. The open to the show gets me all fired up, the Adam Amin Enrique call. Thanks for having me. Happy to be down here in Dallas for the first couple of weekends of AU. Well, I have experience doing women's basketball with the Connecticut Sun and the WNBA. There was a need for the first couple of weeks down here in Dallas to cover the first 2 weeks of now a 4-week season. Previous years was a 5-week season for AU. And Sherry Kempf, who is the executive producer, she wears many hats, but Sherry had reached out and asked if I had availability. And I think you know this, in the hustle of the business, I made it work with my schedule. Luckily, I do a lot of G League basketball with the Maine Celtics, and I cover their home games, and Maine's actually on the road for like a good chunk of their games down the stretch. So the timing worked out. It's a timing business. Opportunities come about, and if you can make it work, you make it work. So I think I've got a couple years now under my belt with women's basketball coverage, and it made a lot of sense to work with Cheryl. which, fun fact, Cheryl's son, Jordan Jackson, plays for the Maine Celtics. And Jordan was in the slam dunk contest for the NBA G League. So I had met Cheryl a couple of times earlier this season, and I had not known anything about participating in AU. I had known she had covered AU games, and she's doing a lot more games broadcast-wise. I have met Ari Chambers. She's been at Mohegan Sun doing Connecticut games. Met Savannah Collins for the first time down here in Dallas. So opportunity presented itself. I was available, and I followed some of the league just because of the W coverage, and like Dejanay Carrington is a Connecticut Sun player who had been down here for AU. Courtney Williams is another name that comes to mind. Odyssey Sims. So you kind of follow along. You follow the breadcrumbs to kind of get ready for the next summer and what players were doing overseas with AU to get ready for the next W season. And so I'd been familiar with the league. And then having watched back some games on YouTube, the internet, which is lovely at times to find what you need to kind of get sink your teeth into it. I was excited to see what the hype was about. And after night one, I get it. It's a fun product. So happy to be down here. It's good.
And we will talk more about that product that tipped off last night in segment 2. But it's really interesting that you sort of talk about, getting your feet wet back into women's basketball coverage. And It's funny because we talk about how there are WNBA players that use Athletes Unlimited to sort of get their, game speed back, sort of prepare for the WNBA season. But for a broadcaster, how does this sort of help you prepare for the WNBA season ahead?
Yeah, you refamiliarize yourself with players, kind of get an understanding of what their off season was like. And I know that's a loaded word for women's basketball because they don't really have one depending on their situation. You have the Olympics coming up this year too. So you've got that. There's a core of players in this league that are starters, rotation players, and some that are budding stars potentially down the road, which I think is really good for the league, that we've got some younger faces that have played a year. Ironically, they already played a year professionally in the biggest pro league for women's basketball, which is the WNBA. And now they're playing in their first year of this, and just seeing how they pull back. They're just trying to soak every ounce out of that wet towel of what is this experience. It's March 1st, which is, I just figured that out. It's March. We're no longer in the month of February, but we're coming up, right? We're a month and a half from training camp. So it's almost like it's like baseball spring training, I guess, as well for a broadcaster. And I don't want to make light of this is important. I understand AU's goals, but the cross promotion with the W, we were on the WNBA app last night. I take pride, just a quick note on me. I do a lot of freelance and I work around a bunch of sports, and basketball's been very good to me. At the NBA G League, I do some work with the NBA as well. Having ties to all of it, it's a great kind of refresher. You jump back in, but it's like riding a bike. You remember, and having a presence of players that have been in the league already. It's a treat to get back into the mix before the summer starts, which is very soon. Like I said, training camp's a month and a half away, so it's really like a spring. The W is like a spring league, then it becomes a summer league.
I just looked. It's a little, 58 days or something?
Yeah.
Like
All right. There you go. You got the number. I don't have it off the top of my head, so you got it.
I was looking this morning because, we gotta plan ahead. But before we head to our first break, I think what I want to know from you is, obviously, what makes Athletes Unlimited so entertaining and fascinating and just interesting is how it's scored. And so you're someone who has a lot of experience calling basketball, but maybe not called in this way. So how was that first night sort of trying to get used to how things are scored for this league?
Yeah, a lot like the players. Like Tiffany Mitchell was one of our mic'd up players last night. We had her for a chair chat, and then she was our star in the stands and a natural with the microphone. Tiffany Mitchell, newest member of the Connecticut Sun. I was very impressed with her delivery and how she had fun with it. So that was fun, which you don't really know what to expect with those, and Tiffany took the experience and rode with it. But at the end of the day, it is a basketball game, right? So at least for the play-by-play guy, like I know Cheryl's got relationships. We were at the table, and this year we're courtside with the statistician crew, the public address, replay review. We're on that side. We're not across the way this year. So you're in the thick of all of it. So we're closest to one of the benches, and people are coming up to Cheryl, understandably, not a problem. I almost approached the play-by-play role as like you're kind of the point guard, you're the conductor, you're the orchestrator, kind of keep the whole thing on the tracks, work in Cheryl to let Cheryl be Cheryl, let Ari be Ari, have Savannah Collins, who, by the way, Savannah Collins is excellent. I had known nothing about Savannah, started following her on her. She was outstanding, and I told her this, so I'm not. Like I said, you were awesome. Like the draft breakdowns, the understanding of she is an excellent. I'm trying to find the right word.
Analyst, maybe.
Well, yeah, an analyst, but I mean, like she's done a really good job, Jackie, of just helping the viewer understand the model of Athletes Unlimited, whether it be volleyball or lacrosse or softball or basketball. So I thought Savannah was awesome. So shout out Savannah Collins. Excellent work with the draft breakdowns, helping people understand that, getting in the minds of the captains and the facilitators to make their decisions. I'm excited to work with Savannah and how she kind of goes. I could throw anything at her, and she had something. It was great. So, yeah, I think it's you're reminded at the end of the day, it's still a basketball game. The quarter scoring, the game scoring. So I don't try to, at least after night one, I don't want to get too much into the minutia of the leaderboard. While it's important, and that's how you end up winning, you get a medal, there's still a product that has the attention needed. It's trying to improve players. You'll hear we'll get into this, I'm sure, but individually, players are doing this to help suit and propel their careers. And so many great stories. And that's the other element too, is storytelling. So we can go into I think at the end of each quarter, we harped on it. Hey, on 60 points on the line for the team that wins the quarter. Important. I mean, there was a moment in the fourth quarter, Team Gray, it might have been the third quarter. I'm trying to remember what it was. Natasha Cloud is standing there. Team Gray, orange team, was off to our left. And Natasha Cloud is yelling at the current five on the floor. Hold, like they're trying to win the quarter. And they're up, I think they're up 10 in the game. But that goes out the window. It goes out of your thought process. And Tiffany Mitchell had a wide open look from three. You run the risk, if you miss the three, you lose points. But if you make a three-pointer, that's 30 points. That's the most stat points you can get for any shot or any kind of statistical category in a game. And Tiffany knocked it down. So we gave her a hard time about that after. But yeah, I think that's we try to weave that stuff in to help people understand the build. It's still basketball. It's competitive basketball. But the leaderboard does affect the product because it gives you that playoff intensity. Every moment really does matter for your individual standing on the leaderboards. That's something I'm still trying to figure out of where to pick and choose. And I think once the league gets deeper into the year, you start honing in on that more for sure. Starting out, let's figure out who we have. Let's learn about these 40 athletes. Absolutely.
And we're going to learn a little bit more about these 40 athletes and how they did on opening night in our second segment. But first, I want to talk to y'all all about our friends at FanDuel, which is our show sponsor for this episode. So get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and women's college basketball players and teams with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you very much, FanDuel. And let's get back into it. I am here with Brendan Glasheen, and we are talking all things Athletes Unlimited basketball. So, Brendan, let's talk about opening night and your reactions. Who stood out to you last night? Take us through.
Well, we'll go right in order. Team Gray, Team Hall was our first game to kick off opening night. Allisha Gray, first-time captain, which I spoke to some of the folks that had been with the league the first couple years. It was Allisha's first year last year, so she hadn't been here from the beginning. And I was like, how is it that she's only been this is her first time being a captain? But what I admired about Allisha, scored early, had 13 in the first half, willingness to draft a couple of point guards in Tiffany, fellow South Carolina Gamecock, and then the next pick to be Natasha Cloud. But a group of dogs, unselfish, had 35 field goals, 22 assists. So they're like, that's impressive to me. They shot the ball well from the field. They have their numbers right here. But the efficiency for a first game with not like, this is also really important. There's not a lot of practice time. Like, they all got to Dallas at this point now 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago for some, and you don't have a lot of time to get yourselves assimilated and in cohesion. So unselfishness in that first couple weeks, especially when you want to rack up win points, quarter points, all that, which are important. Those are bulky point totals that can really help your standing in the leaderboard. So and having Breon January as their facilitator, I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing here. They've got kind of people that can keep multiple players can be at the controls and have the ball. But what's your mindset off the ball? So I thought Allisha had some moments in the second half where she was ball dominant first half, would come around a screen, weak side, cut. It was cutting. People were moving. It was moving. Emily Engstler, Adu Bulgak, who was their big. I was okay. Now, Team Hall had some hybrids, some size. I was curious. This game feels like these teams they're not evenly matched from a personnel standpoint, like very different builds to their rosters. And I thought Team Gray made the adjustments, and that's why they pulled away in the second half. But I think Lexi Hull, Grace Berger was great also. Like, Grace Berger got thrown into this last minute. But some familiarity playing with Lexi Hull in Indiana, that certainly helped as far as how those two could find chemistry. So I'm expecting a bounce back from Team Hull. And then our second game, we had two captains that have been established captains in Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims. And while it was a slow start for Team Sims, Odyssey just has a feel for how this works, and just really being like, it's one thing to wear the C on your chest and be a captain, but you're not just like, you're a captain for a variety of reasons. You pick the team. You might also score the points, which Odyssey did last night, had a double-double and near triple-double. But also you're keeping in mind all of the stat stuff, which you asked me about earlier. I'm already having a hard time trying to figure out where to work it in. Odyssey's got a feel for it in real time while playing the game. So I said it on the air last night. I think she's playing like 3 different games at once. Not to mention, she's got some edge. She's chirping, and she backs it up, right? So the complete package last night. But I thought some of the bigs last night were excellent. I thought Haley Jones, Letitia Ami here, both of the Atlanta Dream, they had good nights. I thought Zaya Cook, folks might look at the stat line and go, oh, 4 of 15. No, there were some layups. I think Zaya had some moments where like, wow, I'm wide open. They had some breakaways. So Team Mitchell had some missed layups that I think they'll clean up here in this first weekend. But those are some names that jump to mind. So yeah, the common customers that have been part of the league before, but some new faces too that I thought had really good opening nights.
So it's interesting that you say those names that you do that come from the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream. And something I've paid attention to is sort of how those two franchises they're two franchises that I would say have built it the right way. And what I mean by that is they've really been working on developing their core and developing their young players that they
Sure.
draft and taking their steps back to the playoffs step by step. They don't skip steps. And so both of those organizations have really been using Athletes Unlimited as a tool that can allow these young players to not only test the skills that they're working on during the off season, but also helps create chemistry. I mean, being on a team with your WNBA teammate, it helps. It really helps. And so it's interesting. So 3 from Atlanta, 3 from Indiana, and then you also have 3 players from Los Angeles. And that the Sparks are a team that now have pressed the reset button. So it remains fascinating to me that WNBA teams use Athletes Unlimited as a way to help develop their players when that's a really hard thing to do. Before we get into our next break, I do want to ask you a little bit about Adut Bulgak because she's someone who a lot of people online were like, who is this? So who is she?
So again, the way they built the Team Gray, the attention is on their guards, rightfully so, with Allisha, who really plays both. Allisha is a forward guard, is interchangeable, can guard really anybody. And even like there were moments I thought in the second half where Natasha Cloud drew the assignment of Haley Jones. Like Natasha said, I will take Haley in the second half because Haley was really who kept Team Hall in striking distance for some of those quarter wins. I thought so. Natasha Cloud's like, I got this. All defense in the W, all defense in AU. So I was like, so I said to Cheryl at one point, I said, well, just pregame. We're trying to figure out what I'm picking the Hall of Famers brain about. Okay, when you look at the teams on paper, well, Cheryl said I said, well, it seems that Team Hall's got more of the size advantage, right? That they could exploit that. And then Cheryl said, well, Emily Engstler was good in scrimmages, and Emily had a great game. We shouldn't leave Emily out, who's on a training camp deal with Washington right now. Had a really nice opening night, had 6 blocks, couple steals. You get 10 points a block, 10 points a steal. Those are important. They really reward defense. And there's a defensive player of the year, as we know, as well. And then there's Adut Bulgak, who, when I'm going through notes and trying to figure out who's who, and there are some that I'm very familiar with from doing the W. And Adut, 31 years old, from Edmonton, Alberta, played a couple years at Florida State, averaged like 12 and 8. I watched some highlights on YouTube. I'm like, oh, she's got some game. Like she can hold down the fort as a complimentary big and do her role. And that's kind of what I felt Allisha did in her draft is I need people that are going to be role accepting. And then you'll be rewarded with your individual stat points, which is the whole name of the game. I mean, there was a segment we had coming out of a break last night where the players, it seems like a silly question, but the trash talk was what really came and commenced from this. Hey, who do you think's going to win? And they're like, well, I'm going to win. And it's like weird because it's team. We think sports team, but it's like an I thing. Like I think I'm going to win it. And Adut was not featured, but Adut did exactly what I think allows you to be like, I think Adut Bulgak it's one night, a couple more games to go here, but Adut put herself on the map, not just for people like yourself and people consuming the product, but the rest of the players are like, okay, like did all the right stuff, had a couple of blocks, only had 9 shots, but made 5 of them, could stretch the floor, knocked down a couple of jumpers, was in the W, was drafted in 16 by the New York Liberty. I think only has a couple of W games in her career, so technically has W experience, but I thought elusive, not like could come out and guard and not just have to stay stuck to the bottom of the paint. But yeah, 12 games over 2 years, 8 years overseas, South Korea, Spain, France, Israel, Mexico. So has had her share of experience, grew up in Sudan, and then had spent most of her life in Canada. So
yeah, I will be watching for her. I mean, she is 6'4". She can score on the perimeter. She can score inside,
Mhm.
really athletic. WNBA talent evaluators like that type of skill set. So we'll see what happens here.
Especially if you want to pace and space, and if the more you can do and do it efficiently, you shoot 40% from three and better than 50% from the field on just 9 shots. Let's see, only had 1 turnover, blocked a couple shots, and played the second most minutes, only behind Allisha Gray. Played 34 of the 40 minutes, so they couldn't. She was so good they couldn't take her out. So,
that is fascinating. I mean, we haven't seen a Rebecca Gardner type story and come from Athletes Unlimited. I just wonder, could this be the one? And I think what's key here is that Adut Bulgak, she has overseas experience, and WNBA general managers really value that. So anyway, coming up on our final segment, we're going to discuss what we've learned about Athletes Unlimited over the years. But first, I do want to remind y'all all about our friends at Prize Picks. So it is demon time on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks includes women's college basketball and the WNBA. So this week on Prize Picks, I'm selecting Paige Beckers for more than 29 points and Aaliyah Edwards for more than 10 rebounds, Cameron Brink for more than 2 blocks, and Caitlin Clark for more than 4 3-pointers made. But anyway, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Thank you, Prize Picks. We really appreciate it. So I'm back here with Brendan Glasheen. We have been talking all about Athletes Unlimited. And so what I really want to get into here is what exactly, or how would you describe Athletes Unlimited, and how does it really differ from watching a WNBA game stylistically? Like, I'm not exactly talking about the point system and how it's scored, but when you're watching, what feels different about it to you?
Well, you can't help but notice, Jackie, that there are we kind of talked about this off the top, where you've got players in this league who don't get opportunities, whether it be with the ball or just minutes in general. Take out like scoring and rebounding and whatever your game is. You're uncovering more about what players are capable of in a professional setting. So that's why it's different, because it's not the same. It's not the star-studded names we know in the W, but you're given an opportunity to figure out how you can go impact winning. And you uncover a lot that you hadn't seen in a first year in the W or 2 years in the W. But even like Sydney Colson has been outspoken about this, how AU has given her new life to her career. Lexi Brown has discussed this. They've been in the league and still trying to find their footing, but AU wasn't around when they were drafted a couple years ago.
As you were saying, Athletes Unlimited is a space for players to find out a bit more about their games, to try new things. Even the folks like Allisha Gray, as you were saying. I mean, I remember listening to Savannah Collins on the broadcast sort of say, well, she's looking to be a little bit more selfish. She's looking to score a little bit more. She wants to try new things out and bring those things to the WNBA. So this is a space for players to really, explore their games. And I don't know if that's something that players can do overseas when the schedule is very tight. You have your practices, you have a specific way of playing, that individualistic component here, it really helps with player development.
All of that while trying to play the game the right way. And that's why the weekly drafts and the roster maneuvering adds that importance to, understandably, you want to move up the leaderboard. Yes, but if you don't play the right way, you won't win quarters, you won't win games. And at the end, those win points matter. And you have to put up the numbers and be part of winning. So it fits all of the things that we look for as fans, as spectators, as media members, why we love players and why we like stars and why we like the sport. Who comes out, what cream rises to the top, and we can say, okay, like they get it. Allisha is a great example of that. No question about it. So it's a game within the game, but also how to best use your skill set. And like I said, like Allisha, like you mentioned that angle about trying to be more selfish. She drafted 2 point guards, like with her first 2 picks, with a lot of pedigree. Natasha Cloud's a champion, has established herself as a face of women's basketball, a face in women's sports. We all know that. And Tiffany Mitchell's been a vet for 10 years. Like Allisha and Tiff both went to South Carolina, but there's a little bit of a separation there. Not a big one, like Zaya, like there's a bigger with the South Carolina connection, but that's a credit too to their coaches. Like you brought up, I think something else that jumped out to me. Christy Sides, Tanisha Wright, Tanisha chimed in. She was on social media. She was watching the games very closely, but it was a good night for the Atlanta Dream, but just trying to play the right way. So you said it about building the team, like do it the right way. There's that component, but also trying to play the right way. And that's a credit to a lot of them. So yeah, I think it's challenging. This is hard. So when you say describe Athletes Unlimited, training camp's a week and a half. Haley Jones admitted this. I played at Stanford, went right into the league, and haven't really had time to kind of take a breath.
Rest your body.
Rest your body, right? Mentally, physically. And then, okay, you're going to dive into this league before W training camp. Good luck. Figure it out. That comes back to training in the off season while managing your body, but also if you're playing the game the right way. And I still think while individual points are important for this, I think you end up finding out that the players that end up at the top, most of them play the game the right way and do it. They have winning ingredients to their games. So I think it's really cool. I do. I was fascinated by it. Like it's one thing to read about it and understand point values, but then to actually see it, and you can see the players, especially ones that have been here for all 3 years or they're entering their 3rd year. You can tell that you hear this all the time too. The game has slowed down for them. This is a brand new league, right? Yeah. But for the younger crop that you've talked about, uncovering what more they can do, they have a chance to put their fingerprints on it, and it can be their thing. Where like the W is 27, 28 years old now, right? Like when you're a rookie or a 2nd year or a 3rd year in the W and you're just trying to carve out 10 minutes of playing time a night, this league, you might be a 6th player or a 4th or 5th starter and get 25 to 30 minutes a night. You get a real chance to put your fingerprints on this league by itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is a league defined by, I think, opportunity. That's how I see it.
Pardon the pun. It's unlimited. I think the name works. It really, I kind of get that's going real deep now. I think that's, I figured out the meaning behind the unlimited part of Athletes Unlimited. One day in.
Yes, one day in, and it's this idea of that the athletes make it their own. They make it what they want it to be. And so if for WNBA players, they need a space to get back into game shape before the season, that's what it could be. If it's for players who want to make a WNBA roster, this is their chance to show out. If it's for players who just miss playing in the United States, this is what that is for them. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen I want to give a huge thank you to Brendan Glasheen for hopping on the show today. I do want to remind our listeners that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. But anyway, this has been Jackie Powell and
Brendan Glasheen.
Yes, and we are signing off. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everyone.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.